Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives share their turning points, growing pains, breakthroughs, and triumphs to help you show up with confidence. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and today we're joined by the tenacious Lori Richardson, B2B sales and revenue growth trainer at Score More Sales, sales coach at Harvard Business School, host of the podcast Conversations with Women in Sales, and founder of Women Sales Pros, a group that helps women get into B2B sales positions and leadership. Today, she joins to share a mantra that has turned into her mission. Lori, thank you so much for being with us today. We are pleased to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here.
You know, one of the things I noticed just from the many things you have on your plate is that there's obviously a lot of consistency with a focus on sales, but also women in sales. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I have been in sales myself since I was knee high. I grew up in my grandmother's clothing store. I got into business to business selling in my early 20s. And after many years of being in it, I launched my own company to help companies sell better. And I realized that all my customers were male, pretty much, like nearly all. And so it made me wonder back in about 2015, it made me wonder where all the women were, because it was this way when I started and it couldn't be the same like years later. And so it got me very curious. And I started doing research and found that women are underrepresented at every level in B2B sales. And, I want to help do something about it.
Yeah, and I understand that that's led you to sort of a mantra.
Yes, my mantra is more women, more sales.
Why do you think that equation is true?
Well, we know it certainly is true in an all male team, which there still are some I run into all the time. In an all male team, say in technology or some other industry, if you add women to the team, it's going to improve profits and revenue, as it would if you had an all female team and you added men to it. But that doesn't happen typically in business to business selling. So one part of it is that it's great to get more women into sales. Some people say, oh, it's a feel good thing. Maybe there's some revenue involved, but it really is true that our customers want to work with inclusive sales team. And when we do that, there's a second benefit that I think is really something people don't always think about. I know it because it happened to me when I was in my early 20s and I got into business to business selling. It enabled me to better support my family. I was a single mom and I was able to, go from a minimum wage job in teaching, which is shameful that that's still a problem in the education sector, that we don't pay teachers enough. And I was able to not only support my family, I bought my first house at age 27, was able to get my son into sports that were more expensive and, turned out to be a career for him. And when we empower women anywhere in the world, we know that women help community. We help our family, and then we help those around our family, our community. So doing multiple things by getting more women on our sales teams.
So when you developed this mantra, was it for you or was it for your customers?
That's a great question. I think it was both. I use it as a keynote talk, and I just kind of embrace that mantra because people want to know more when they hear it. They don't quite understand what it means, and so I'm able to fill them in. It's a great conversation starter. It's also true what I tell our customers and our future customers.
I mean, have you ever met a sales team that had too many women on it?
No, but there are some exceptions like ed tech, educational tech, where a lot of people hired were former teachers and there are more women that were teachers than men. So sometimes ed tech, martech, marketing, women who got marketing degrees and they ended up getting a marketing sales role. That can happen, but it's very unusual. It's almost always a male majority environment. And women don't want to be in a boys club. They want to be in a place where it's professional and there's zero tolerance for, you know, bad behavior, I guess I would call it.
And so, what do you think it is about sales that makes people assume that women won't be good at it?
I heard a woman tell me that just yesterday. She said that there were people discouraging her from applying for sales roles and encouraging her to do a more technical role because of her background. She really wants to try sales out. And I think that if you can try sales for a couple of years, it's such a great profession because no matter what you do from there, if you leave and go off and start your own business, for example, you need to have sales skills. And if you stay in the company and move over, maybe horizontally, you're going to want to sell your ideas and sell your promotion to the next level. So skills are so important. And I say 2 years because 1 year may not be enough. It's a hard, depending on what you're selling, hopefully you sell something that you believe in and that you understand. And it can be really fun. It can be hard and there's rejection to deal with, as well as, just a lot of like putting a puzzle together. And if you're not good at solving puzzles, you might get really frustrated and not, want to do this journey. And that's why I say try it out, give it 2 years and see what you think. And many women have just stayed in it the rest of their career.
I'm curious, we've talked a bit about how this idea of more women, more sales impacts your clients and their teams and what's going on inside their organizations. How did this idea shape your career and your business?
Well, I was just working in my sales consulting firm, Score More Sales, and I work with mostly men, as I mentioned, and it just kept gnawing at me that there was something missing, and I couldn't figure out why there weren't more women that I was talking with. Or I'd see a company and there'd be some women on the sales team, but as you rose up the ladder into leadership, there's no women, there's no oxygen up there for women, I guess. And I just couldn't figure it out. And so it's helped me to have discussions with companies about their sales culture because inclusivity is a part of culture. And so it's enabled me to expand my conversation with the HR folks and the sales leadership and the company leadership in all the places we talk to people because it's up to them to decide what kind of culture they want for their company and for their team.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you've learned?
Well, I think when I first started out, I was really focused on gender, and that expanded to supporting anyone who's underrepresented in sales. I mean, sales has been very much a man's game and it's been a white man's game, so getting more diversity of all sort, culturally, ethnically, gender, age. That's another one. As I get older, I think about that a lot as well, is that we need to understand why that's important to have different people with different points of view that can help solve tough problems. We run into issues in sales with our customers have problems. They have tough issues to solve and they need our help. And the more that we can bring different perspectives, the better it is for them.
That makes a lot of sense. For us to be a reflection of our ideal customers. And
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of diversity in what that looks like across companies and industries.
Yeah, and there are even companies that will not do business with some of the companies I've talked to because they didn't bring an inclusive team to the table with them. And the company said, we don't think you can help us because we feel like we're different than what you are. And they've lost business. So it actually cost companies money for those that did not think it was important to be diverse and inclusive.
That's a really powerful message. Do you feel like that's something that's happening more often?
Yeah, it's one of the things people are looking at. I mean, the economy is a little tougher than it was previously. So I think people are looking for good value and good solutions and answers to their problems. So whoever is bringing that, I think that they're going with. But I know that as things get better, because business always goes in cycles, it's going to resurface as even more important than it is now. It certainly is something people factor in their decisions when they're deciding who to do business with.
A lot of the people who are listening to this podcast are women. They're women leaders. Many of them are probably in sales. And I'm curious if you think there's power in people finding their own mantra. Do you think that there's something useful about that?
Yeah, it's good to know what you stand for as a person. It's good to know what you stand for professionally. I talk with people every week that are having one challenge or another in the company that they're working for. And when you know what you stand for, it makes it really easy to make decisions based on that. And if you're not really sure and you don't know if you have a voice, then the less you know about yourself and what you stand for, the harder it can be when you're in a corporate environment, I think.
Yeah. Has the more women, more sales mantra helped you make decisions more easily?
Yeah, it's something that just keeps following me. I try. I can't set it aside because it's part of what I do and who I am. So I would say, when people are getting me to help solve their company sales issues, they're getting part of that as well. I'm bringing the more women with me. And I certainly know more women who are sales authors and who run sales and revenue podcasts and who are leaders in leadership and negotiation and all sorts of things so that we can give people a different perspective and point of view than some of the same old tired sales stuff that they've heard for years.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's so interesting that you describe, even within yourself, struggling against the mantra at times. Like there have been moments when you wanted to put it aside. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, for years, people have said, oh, why don't you just, why do you need women in sales? Why isn't it just for everybody in sales? And I said, because women are underrepresented. And, until we're not underrepresented, I'm going to be talking about it until, 50% of sellers are women and 50% of leaders are women. I mean, it just makes sense. Half the population is female. More than 50% of the graduates in universities are female. Why wouldn't we be? Women bring empathy, communication skills, problem solving, collaboration in high doses to the teams that we work in. And so why wouldn't we want to have that on our sales teams? I don't know. A lot of it is just old tradition, and some of it's the boys club, and some of it's just like, well, this is the way we did it. We've always done it this way. And people aren't looking at new ideas. They're not open to new things.
Well, change is hard, but I think that you're asking very valid questions. And my last question to you is for all of our women listeners who maybe aspire to grow their own sales career, or maybe they are in sales, but they want to step into those leadership positions. What advice do you have for them?
One of my favorite things I like to talk about is that success leaves clues. So find women in your industry, maybe in your company, who are very successful, and see what they're doing, see what they have for their mantra, see what they believe in, because that could be helpful to you. And I'd also look for the men that are successful. It's just a little different. We bring different things to the table. And so I had a lot of male mentors and sponsors in companies, and that's great too. But I would look for women as well. They might be outside of your company, they might even be outside of your industry, but there are a lot of great examples now that you can find through podcasts and books and other ways.
Well, and you're one of them, Lori. I really appreciate all of the advice that you've shared with us today. If there's anyone who wants to reach out to you to learn more, where can they find you?
Yeah, I think the best way is through LinkedIn. I'm at Squirmore Sales on LinkedIn and at Squirmore Sales on a lot of social. Just reach out to me and someone, me or somebody on my team, will be sure and follow up. If it's LinkedIn, I do all my own LinkedIn. There's no AI, there's no assistance. It's all me. So that's probably the best place.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lori.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Before we end the episode, we want to take a moment to reflect with you, our wonderful listeners, about what Lori's story means to you. When you think about your work environment, are you being celebrated or tolerated? And what can you do to bring more women along with you as you grow in your career? If today's show inspired you, tell us. Send an email or voice memo to hello@wednesdaywomen.org. Or keep the ripple going by giving us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. This podcast is brought to you by Wednesday Women, an organization dedicated to increasing the visibility of women executive leaders. Learn more at wednesdaywomen.org. Thank you to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood. Again, I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping you'll keep the ripple going. Until next time.